Good afternoon, everybody. It's RT here in the lab with Nicholas. How's it going, Nick?
Happy holidays.
We are on, oh my God, that freaky moment when you hear your own voice in your ear moments later. All right, let's make sure we're plugging away at all things. We've got Periscope. Okay, guys, blood in Alt Town. Let's take a look at how bad it is and if we can see a floor in sight. And if not, in some cases, when you catch yourself on the wrong side of a trade, there are opportune moments to get out. If you're like, holy shit, this is a big downtrend, and that wasn't the selling on the deep plunges often leads to chopping yourself up because maybe in the next few days it bounces 30% and you're like, oh my God, and you buy it back. So we'll take a look at what trending altcoins look like. And there are moments to exit. And unfortunately, if you don't have a plan on those days in a larger downtrend that you might have been thinking, I should probably get out of this. But then you get that nice big bounce and, what do you do, right? You look around, you say, oh, I'm going to check Twitter. And all you see is people saying that was the bottom, haha, you didn't buy it. And then you look back a month later and that spike up was just part of the downtrend. So, my thought on that is, well, we'll get into it a little later today. Bottom line is there's a time to change your tune on an asset, and usually the worst time to do that is during a deep red day. So if today is,
it's a very reactive thing versus what we say being proactive.
Yeah, and I'm not perfect at it. There's certain things that I'm like, man, I probably should have sold that closer to the top, and then I carry it a little bit through some downtrending, and then when it bounces, I also get caught in the hopium, saying, well, maybe that was the bottom. And then a day later, you're at the new low and you're like, oh, okay, wait, should have sold that one. So, I can speak from experience. I'm literally dealing with this with one of my bags right now. And we're going to get into a little bit more specifically how that looks, how that goes. And, just keeping in mind that short-term movements, things that cause you emotional reactions, should not be factored in as much to the greater picture, which is very bullish on crypto in the time horizon of months and years. And keeping that focus helps me a lot and has served me really well. When you see like 10, 20% pullbacks on things like Ethereum that just went up 600% this year. So we're going to dive into that. We'll talk a little bit about the emotions that come with what we're seeing right now in ETH BTC, which just broke a key low, as Bitcoin didn't even make new highs. So that is concerning. I'm not going to lie. As far as short term goes, that's pretty concerning for Ethereum. And as the father of altcoins at this point, it is going to ripple through the entire crypto altcoin space, and is actually starting to seep into some of the Uniswap coins, unfortunately, because they were kind of holding up pretty well. Because you got to realize too, Binance altcoins are controlled for the most part by a number of the same market makers, and then you have them on Bitcoin and you have them on Ethereum and all that. And so it's very easy to have those coordinated moves where they all just, Bitcoin takes off, they all in unison, and you think that's strange, but it's not, because algorithms are firing and basically, offsetting risk. Okay, Bitcoin's breaking out, we're programmed to then sell into that, or, so it's all a little bit, but they don't operate necessarily like that on Uniswap, obviously. So you're going to see a little more separation there, but we are seeing a lot of these coins start to catch up. Another thing to think about is, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas and you're just here for the time off. Hopefully everyone is getting into a place where they can enjoy some of this, even if it's a lockdown. Find something you can do, unplug for a little bit. I'm going to try not to stare at a chart for at least a day, probably on Christmas Day. I know. I'm already failing at that, because as I said that, I was like, I'll be on my phone when I wake up before I go to sleep, whatever. However, it would be nice to unplug for a day. And I think a lot of people feel that. And typically on holidays like this, I find that the market is a cruel mistress, and she will often pounce when you least suspect it, and when the volume is low and when the books are thin. So don't be shocked to see some uncomfortable volatility in one way or another during the most inopportune times through the holidays, and just prepare yourself for that. Say, okay, run some scenarios. If price dumps, here during that, how will I feel? How can I prepare for that? If price takes off without me while I'm trying to enjoy my dinner and I just sold so that I could have a little less volatility in my life, How will I feel? And as you go through those scenarios, trying to establish a happy medium. I want exposure to crypto, period. But I also don't want complete exposure to crypto when there's a time perhaps when I'm expecting, I want to have some time off. I want to be with my family. I want to enjoy that time. And this is one of the more challenging parts of cryptocurrency, right? When the markets are closed, those stock guys, they got something figured out. And that is that all of them can agree on a collective, like, hey guys, let's have some time off. Fair play, right? And, in crypto, we don't have that luxury. And that's part of what's sexy about it, but that's also the Achilles heel of sanity. So anyways, this is all the kinds of conversations we're going to have as we head into the holidays. We will not be live Friday on Christmas Day for obvious reasons. I think,
What?
yeah, for the most part, I think it makes sense to let everyone enjoy them time with the family, ourselves included. And frankly, engagement will probably be pretty low that day. So it's probably a good time for us to take a day. We will be back on Monday, which is when Nick and I would usually go live. It's up, I actually haven't spoken to you about this, Nick, but I'll be live on Monday. I don't have a guest lined up. Again, it's the holiday. We're going to get back into the Monday guest stuff following Monday, starting in the new year. So with that, how are you, Nick?
Good, man. A lot of stuff
Mr.
going on in
Hat.
the market. So
Yeah, let's dive into some charts. We've got. Sorry, say that again.
Do it. No, I was ready to dive in.
Beauty. We've got Matheson in the chat. We've got Linus, Crypto Yankee. Good to see you guys. And Scott, Trex Tallboy, and Dave Millett. What's up, fellas? Walmart parking lot. Yes, bring it in. And we got Trading View over on Trading View, throwing us some coins for the live show. Appreciate it. Holiday coins for the live show. Love you guys. And let's check in real quick on Periscope. We got a couple of guys watching in on Twitter. So welcome to the stream, guys. We're going to dive into the charts. We're going to see this Bitcoin range that I'm watching on the hourly, which, in retrospect, I'm like, oh, kind of wish I spotted that a little while ago because it has been getting some really nice trade play. And often, as the case with ranges, I spot them after a few tags. And that's not all bad because in many cases, let me just make sure I have the right chart up. In many cases, yeah, there we go. What am I saying? In many cases, these ranges actually grow in strength as they get more established because the more people that spot them, the more the levels get respected. And so this is my current view right here. Okay, this is a range that was established by this insano Darth Maul wick. Gives you an area to draw a low from, a high from, and then using a fib, I get the 50% of that, which is the equilibrium, the middle point. Okay. Now I've marked this here for Christmas Day, although that was on a daily. Let me stretch it out. So Christmas Day, I gotta get the exact hour, but there is an options expiry that Beat Plosky mentioned on our Monday stream. That's just a time you want to keep an eye on as far as perhaps a pivot, some volatility. Markets often can get pushed around into big expiries to create sort of a max pain event. And you hear that kind of stuff a lot, max pain, max pain. If a certain number of contracts, open interest exist at a level and it stands, the writers of those options stand to gain if they expire worthless. Well, the option writers, often large players, they have the power to move the market in their favor. And what's really crazy, I won't get into it too deeply because it's not my area of expertise, but Brian Beamish, who I often bring up, the founder of TRI, he'll go through these with us on like the S&P, right? Trillions of dollars flooding around in that market, and they you'll still see in the S&P into certain dates that the market just gets pushed up into an options expiry and then dumped, and you're just like, oh my god, these guys are moving that market as if it is their own toy. So we could see that in Bitcoin through this expiry here on Christmas Day. So just something to keep an eye on. Me personally, for lack of a more established strategy around that, I typically will just avoid higher leverage plays into events like that because there's just uncertainty, volatility. And yeah, so myself, I'm positioned fairly balanced right now. I've got a little more, I should say, stable coins back into my portfolio. I'd say I'm looking at it now at about 42%. So I am 42% stabilized up around these ranges. 30% Ethereum, 15% Bitcoin. So probably wanted to shift Ethereum to Bitcoin, but I'm playing a lot on Uniswap and messing around with LPs and stuff. And Bitcoin just isn't as exciting for that. So, but holding on to some Bitcoin. What are you looking at, Nick, in the market?
Yeah, everything's pretty stable up here right now. I think if we're going to
get your screen share up here, we're going to flip over to that.
Permission denied.
Oh, permission denied. You must be on a different computer. It might have to. Is it a Mac?
No.
Oh, my Mac sometimes for the new app you have to give permission. Probably the same on PC.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to work through that with our producer, Johnny on the spot, and I will dive into a few names here, guys. There's MTA, which is coming into some key levels, and I say key levels as in nearing its bottom. This looked pretty strong. Inverse head and shoulders breakout, and now it's just kind of pulled back in. If I wanted to get long this, which I actually did, I should say I do, but based on what I just explained about my portfolio, I got a decent amount of exposure to altcoins. So I'm not in a rush to max out any more exposure into altcoins. But if I was looking at MTA, this is a level I want to hold. I want to see divergence, meaning as these new lows are made, I want to see the momentum indicators turning around. So let's take a look at that. Should probably go 12 hour, something a little higher up, get a stronger signal. Not really seeing the divergence that you want to see, right? So this low came in here and we've made a newer low, and the MACD is actually increased in its velocity. In other words, the pace of this dump is higher. So there's no bullish divergence there yet on the 12 hour. Same with the RSI. Oftentimes what you can see that's really nice to see on these is, prices coming in, making new lows, and the RSI is already oversold and it's like trending up. And up above on the price chart, you can see prices like trending down. That's the kind of stuff I love to see. Not seeing it right now. So, it just is what it is. We have to wait for something that's most attractive. I want altcoins to do well. I want to see, bullish scenario play off and we get a nice alt season through the break and we can, end the year with more bullishness for all of the bags. But the reality is that altcoins really love to perform in Q2. And I did mention this more in the fall. And since then, I've kind of like flip-flopped back and forth around dominance, right? When we broke down here on dominance, I thought, maybe it's happening. Well, clearly it's not. And I don't want to force, my capital into an asset that I don't think is ready to perform. So as much as I want something to happen, I'm going to have to act on my setups. And right now, we are shooting up into sort of a risk-off space. I mean, this actually looks pretty gross if you're into Bitcoin dominance falling because you have altcoins that you want to perform well versus Bitcoin. I mean, here's what we have. What looked like a lower high and was coming down absolutely was a lower high, but it is not anymore. On the weekly, we closed above, and now this week has continued up. So this is a fairly high time frame structural breakout on Bitcoin dominance. Should not be ignored. Should not be denied, despite our biases towards altcoins. I'm assuming most people watching, have some positions and want to see them do well. So this is something you got to keep an eye on. There are some logical moves up here, sweeping these highs. I know it's a dominance chart, but these kinds of things still do happen where, like even right here, just move, fake out, come back down. Moved up, fake out, come back down. I think there was even a higher high here, faking out, coming back down. So keeping an eye on that kind of stuff. And, as it turns out, in retrospect, so easy to spot at the time. It doesn't look like it. This was, bullish retest and then go. And I was a little suspicious of that at the time and concerned. But again, zooming in, my setup just says, we broken down. We might be trending down. I'm going to start taking positions. And I got stopped out. So again, mostly back into stablecoins, ETH, BTC, and just watching for signs of weakness here. And I'm just not seeing them. And they'll probably take some time to form. One other thing to consider, I put this tweet out this morning that we had lost these lows, fully aware of the potential for, this is a 12 hour, but just say on a daily, right? Just say on a daily, we come down and then we zip back up and then we trend back up. That's a possibility. That's always possible. But if we do that, right, if we shoot back up here, it's not like, ooh, we missed the bottom, we're not going to be part of alt season, because those kinds of reactive moves during a downtrend typically will get a retest and then go. And so instead of trying to call bottoms, and I talk about this all the time, instead of trying to pick the bottom and long here, waiting for that, saying, oh shit, look at that, nice bounce, really nice volume. Somebody's interested in protecting this level, and based on the amount of volume, you can think about how many people, whales, whoever, are saying we're going to put a bottom in here. But even then, you will get that retest. We saw it here. Very strong move off the bottom. Don't FOMO. Wait for it. There's your retest. Even this bounce off that low got a retest before the big move. So waiting for that, because if you don't wait for that and you say, you know what, ETH BTC is so cheap, look how low it is. If you don't wait, for sure you're risking the first impulse. Who cares? That's not the move, right? Get that retest and go. That's the move. But alternatively, by waiting, you could miss this, right? You could just not have to suffer through that, losing money. And then by the time that bottom does come in, and then there's your retest, whatever that looks like, how eager are you to then risk more capital after going through all this? So I hope that makes sense, guys. A lot of patience necessary. Again, holidays incoming. Not a time I expect to see major market hype based on lower volume, based on thinner books. Probably see some volatility, but be careful how much weight you put in it. For example, like weekend rallies. People always say, oh, don't trust the weekend price action. We can actually see that beautifully on this Bitcoin chart here. Let me get the exact dates correct, just so I'm not sounding silly. So the 19th, Friday was the 18th, Sunday night was the 20th, and you can see here, Friday, move it up through the weekend, don't trust it. Monday open, basically right back where they left off, right? If you consider things like the CME, like Grayscale, those are not trading on the weekends. And so people often will say, don't trust weekend price action. And in many cases, you end up pretty much right where you left off. Not always. There are sometimes gaps and all this stuff. But, so that kind of thinking is what I'm thinking around the holidays. I am not rushing to make any major decisions. In fact, and I hope for those of you, I hope some people had pretty good years this year. I got to say I had a pretty good year overall. Feel sort of back on my horse after a pretty rough 2018, 2019 overall. And so I'm actually looking to sort of reset a little bit, maybe even, moving back towards the stable coins I had, back towards the Bitcoin, back towards Ethereum, the majors, and then reassessing, establishing like, holy shit, look how far I've come since January, redeploying things in a strategic way at the right times. So I'm actually looking for a little bit of that spring cleaning kind of vibe into the end of the year. How are we looking on your screen share, Nikki? Do you guys figure that out?
Should be up in a sec. Just need an extension.
Okay, cool. No rush. So yeah, what are you guys doing into the end of the year? Does anyone have any of those kinds of plans? I mean, I know a lot of people, it's like, hey, I'm just dollar cost averaging. I bought a project that I believe in. It's a very low market cap. Bitcoin just broke the all-time high. I expect a bull market in the next year. So I'm just going to hold. And that's valid. If that's your strategy, that's not wrong. I miss out on a lot of things by what some people consider overtrading. So, there's no perfect way to do it, but I'm curious, what are you guys doing? If you want to mention in the chat how you're approaching this, whatever you do, you just want to have a plan. And, even with a plan, we're human. You're going to kick yourself sometimes. You're going to say, oh, I missed this. I hit that. Could have hit this bigger. It is what it is. Nothing is perfect. And the life of a trader is a very stressful one. If you let it be, it can be less stressful. So that's something I'm working on. We put out a tweet the other day to that effect, taking care of yourself. Self-care really is the highest yield for a trader. Sleep well, eat well, exercise well, throw in a little meditation. And I would bet that you will see a large shift in your equity curve over the following months if you can establish those routines, those habits. And so essentially, if your business is trading, a lot of that really just comes down to emotions and decision making. And so you are essentially getting paid to take good care of yourself. if you do it. And I am a bit of a hypocrite in that sense, because I put that tweet out and then I reflected on it. I was like, damn, I've been eating like shit. I've been staying up late for these rebase parties. I haven't hit the gym that I set up in my living room for like a few days. So I took that upon myself today. I'm eating much healthier today. I got a good sleep last night. I did some push-ups this morning. Just kind of reestablishing that routine into the end of the year, into the new year. And it happens to all of us. We got to reset sometimes. Do you have any year-end trading practices like reviewing trade history, setting goals? Yeah. So Sigmar asked a good question, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. I am no better than many when it comes to following a trading plan. I talk about it a lot. I have setups that I look for. Absolutely. I use EdgeWonk for a long time this year. In fact, the best trading this year from a textbook point of view was January, February, March, April, May. And then the summer just got so crazy that I slipped away from those strategies. And for the most part, it's been working out. I've been rewarded for essentially breaking certain rules, which is dangerous. One of the things I want to recommit to into the end of the year and the new year, as we kind of quiet down and then perhaps, roll into maybe what I expect to be maybe a boring January. We'll see. And then often seeing, February accumulation heating up. I'd like to reestablish that for myself so that every single trade I take, every single position I open, there's a stop loss, a take profit, and, the stats I put into the EdgeWonk. Because aside from anything else, like I'm just a data nerd. I love to have that data. And EdgeWonk's great at tracking that. So that's my plan, Sigmar, is to just kind of reassess, reestablish my balances in the portfolio, which I've been doing a bit of this week, a little kind of housekeeping, cutting some bags. Thankfully don't have any massively heavy alt bags that are super underwater. That's something I try to avoid. And it means eating a lot of shit sometimes, but just doing it early. If you're going to FOMO early. If you're going to panic sell early. I do a bit of that. So I did a bit of that already. I've got some more to do. And sometimes, when the dust settles and you look back and you're like, holy shit, like you have a gainer and then you let it disappear. And then you realize you hadn't even fully appreciated what was there in that moment. And so capturing some of that and then just, getting a fresh view of things is a big thing for me into the end of the year. And then treating January like a fresh start. I love that about New Year's. Fresh start, fresh portfolio, putting things into places that make sense for right now and looking forward and trying to avoid as much the emotional decision part of that. G Money, no, 87 Money says, I feel like I need to own some Bitcoin. Do you genuinely believe alts have value? That is such a good question. I genuinely believe that there are altcoins out there that will accrue in value. Yes. And I do recommend to anyone who asks me, like if my friends say like, hey, I want to get into Bitcoin and crypto, what do you think? I always just say start Bitcoin heavy because it's the least volatile and still very volatile. It has tremendous upside, even if you don't see it in the shorter terms. And then you just reduce volatility. So if you tell your friends like, yeah, buy these 10 altcoins and that's all they have, then during these washouts, they're just like, okay, super wrecked. What the hell? So yeah, I think portfolio balance is really important. And for myself, like I outlined earlier, I'm actually short on Bitcoin. Not short. I mean, I have a smaller percentage than perhaps I'd like, as I read out those numbers to you guys, sitting at about 15%. And mostly that's because of this. Because I see us, obviously, you could zoom out to a weekly, but even within this hourly range we're in, we're just up near the highs. We've been getting rejected consistently. If we break out of this, there's going to most likely be some kind of retest opportunities. I can shift some of my stable coins back into Bitcoin. But if we just crap out here and range, it's not that bearish. We're just ranging. That's cool. But by the time we get to range EQ or range lows, if at that point we were to break down and on a higher time frame, that wouldn't even look that crazy because we've come so far, then I'm in a great position, right? Because I was skimming that near the range highs. So that's how I'm doing it personally. Not financial advice, not saying copy this, do that. But, we've come a long way this year. Actually, I can get rid of that ink. We've come a long way this year. And I'm very comfortable paying myself at these highs, even though I think Bitcoin is going so much higher. On the lower time frames, this is an area where I like to stabilize my portfolio. And if I get burned and it just moves, I don't even get my retest and all that, well, I've got the fiat that has lost much value. We know fiat likes to bleed value. But I'll figure out another way to deploy it. Pre-sales, cheap altcoins, Bitcoin on a different trade, right? So these are the things you got to keep in mind. Big difference between traders and investors too. I consider myself more of a trader. I am loyal to no particular asset except for maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum. Still bullish on Ethereum, very much so. So I hope that answers your question. 87 money. The problem is this is when you start to think about those things, right? You hold a lot of altcoins. You listen to those who are very bullish on them, who have their bag, their project, and they're not wrong because most of them are talking about longer term. So they're not wrong just because the last few months have not been great. But it's these times, when Bitcoin dominance is breaking out, when it's shooting up, when ETH BTC is breaking lows, and that is usually when people all start to reconsider their life choices. They say, I would like to shift back to Bitcoin. And you have to ask yourself why. Why did you suddenly decide, right? And that's where people end up, I'm not calling this a bottom or a top, but that's where you end up selling bottoms and buying tops, is when you let recent price action affect your longer term vision. So just ask yourself that question. Be careful not to make massive portfolio decision moves during the highest volatility moments. That's usually does not age well. So what percentage BTC do you hold in spot in alt season? Yeah, Edge Hunter asked a good question. What percentage Bitcoin do I hold, I'm assuming, in spot in alt season? And that's a tricky thing. Alt season's a funny thing. Let's look at it. Can also get rid of this ink. Um, alt season is I actually don't even love the word. I use it because it's what we call it. But, this is a great place to start thinking about getting long, right? You had a breakup, you had the trickle down into the reload zone, and then you had the breakout. So I'm starting to think about getting long right here. But is that alt season? No. Is this alt season? Not even really. This starts to become alt season, and this is clearly alt season. Alt season is something that you spot almost in retrospect. And so, how much spot Bitcoin am I holding during this is very much go. I don't have a set number. I have setups. And so, I would take some longs. If my long setups come in, that means I have less Bitcoin for that particular asset, spread it out. Things get a little crazy, and then get very aggressive with profit taking up in location objectives. For example, like a fib extension, right? You get this rally. Oh, look at that rally. Oh, we're going to new highs. Where is it going to go? Let's get a fib extension out. And it's easy in retrospect, but these are levels I'm always taking profit. Sometimes I get behind, but oftentimes looking back, paying yourself at fib extension levels, it ages pretty well. So I don't know that I could say there's a percentage during an alt season, because alt seasons are these like mystical creatures that you can't really see until they're already gone. How you doing over there, Nick? I got onto a tangent here. I'm mostly just waiting for you to drop some sweet alpha on us. Do you have your screen up? Oh no! Yeah. Any computer PC experts in the house? I will say this: Nick is on the road. He's doing the fam jam, so he has a separate setup than usual, which is why we didn't get to see his live beautiful face. And it sounds like he's having some trouble with the privacy settings and the screen share aspect. So we may just be stuck with my bright, beautiful, vibrant charts, but I would like to hear your thoughts. So perhaps if I pull up some things, you could tell us what you're seeing, and I'll try to illustrate it. We'll do a little improv game. What would you like to talk about, sir? You talk, I will paint.
Could get pretty nasty. I don't think we're going to just pierce through it on the first try, but definitely something to be cautious about. Obviously, all of this stimulus talk, great for Bitcoin, just further expanding the narrative that the central banks have lost control on the monetary policy, and people are starting to look for the exit.
Oh no, Nick. It sounds like they can't hear you, Nick. Sounds back. Okay. Thank you, Skylar, for the heads up. I don't know where you guys lost them, but we are just talking about stimulus bills and how, if we do bounce here or not, the Dixie's just not looking too hot, and further stimulus could push it down. And I agree with you, Nick. I think if we lose these levels here, there's a pretty decent little gap. I mean, we could go left.
It's a big gap.
Yeah, I mean, there's this level, which we've already bounced off now previously. So we're kind of coming in to test that. So there is one more level here where we just, we'd have to get through 88, but pretty big gap down here. And that would probably be what you would call an expansion trade, correct?
Yep. And that you would want to be trading that through other assets, obviously, because the U.S. dollar just moves so slowly. You're not going to get the same gains percentage-wise with trading that market.
Yeah,
that's why I think crypto is such a great proxy for it, because it's significantly more volatile, and the correlation between them has been pretty strong. And I suspect it to stay that way, as the money base, investor base in crypto are legacy guys at this point.
Yeah, I mean, let's look from the lows in March to the current level. That's a 12.5% move on the Dixie, for example. And you could argue that, let's get the Bitcoin chart up. You could argue that this has been a bit of an inverse of that. I mean, it's pretty obvious on the chart. And so let's go from the low to the high, 522%.
And that's what we're talking about, trading other assets, even though they're correlated. To other ones. So inversely correlated.
And I bet there's some fun math we could do here. Like if a 12% move down caused a 500% growth in Bitcoin, presumably caused. I mean, we can get into the causation issue, but now we've got potentially, I guess, from here. So let's look at where we're at here. Let's just say 6% if we were to fill this zone, which on a technical perspective looks perfectly feasible. I mean, we've got lots of SR stuff here. We've got the 618, which is how much of a rally often markets like to take back from whatever it is. That is a 6.5% move. So that's almost half. So we could extend this by 1/3, 1812 at a total. So let's go back here. So if we're going to extend 500 by 1/3, that'd be like 750. I mean, that's $32,000 Bitcoin. If this trend continues where the Dixie, has to reach this level or decides where it's going to land after some heavy stimulus and bullshit, and Bitcoin just keeps going up at the similar pace that it has been given that inverse correlation. That's pretty cool. That's a $36,000 target. Yee-wee.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to take Bitcoin looking at on the daily right now.
Let's take a look at the daily.
Yeah. So obviously, if it continues to break these highs and close above them, just long and ride the momentum. But for now, if you draw a throwback target down there where we broke out, that if it does over Christmas, that's probably going to be your best buying opportunity. Right down there. What was that? Like 19.7, 20.2K or something like that?
High 19s, yeah. I mean, 20 is such an obvious number. I would expect a wick there to just wash a little through.
Probably get front ran.
20 on the dot. But let's see. I mean, and that's sort of what we were talking about. I think it was Monday. And I was joking. I said, I hate those tweets that basically say like this will happen or I'll delete my Twitter. But thanks for the high stakes, bro. But really, I would be shocked if we just never see this level. And I'd be shocked if we, don't see it by the end of next year or whatever time horizon you want to put on it. There's an inefficiency there. And so it's about patience at that point, because you don't have to visit it right away. We're up here.
Yeah.
Like you could, are you willing to sit through something like this? And then it's like, wah, and then it's, continue on. But this level's got to get a tag. I'd say like 98% probability at some point, someday. So,
Yeah, the higher it moves away from it without retesting it, the more painful it will be for people when it inevitably does
when
come
it
back to
comes
the
in,
test side liquidity. Yeah,
yeah. And what's
it
really
always
crazy,
does.
yeah. Well, I was going to say what's really crazy is just that I forget. I feel bad I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that was basically my thought. The only other interesting thing that we always say at this point, just because of the way this market's moving and who's driving it, just watching the inflows and outflows. And right now, we do know that there's such an oversubscription in Grayscale that they've had to pause new inflows. So that doesn't mean that they're going to stop buying. They just have to clear what they currently have in queue right now. In fact, I think they hit one of their largest daily buys yesterday. So
Holy shit.
yeah, there's still quite a bit of institutional demand, and like that's why we say like if price does manage to get back there, it's going to get scooped up big time. But yeah, it's the GPTC premium. It's I think just over 40% right now. We have seen it significantly higher before, but we are at yearly highs right now. Um, Remember, there is a 6-month vesting schedule, locking schedule on those GPTC shares. So that I think that could be some alpha to be used in the future, right? If we Satoshi Josh Olszewicz on Twitter, he always watches and does a great chart on the futures expiries, right? I think we could start a new chart for looking at when the large blocks of GPTC unlocks, knowing that it has a 6-month lock and stuff. So there could be some alpha there, but we'd have to do a little testing on that. But that's kind of my thought.
Perfect. Yeah. And Striker Mike asked on Twitter if we are taking coin chart requests, and I would say absolutely. Yeah, I like the idea of time horizons. I love an x-axis piece of analysis, whether that's putting like an end of the year date on it, or an options expiry, or GAN dates like Jupiter Saturn cross on Monday. And laugh if you will, but it was a great short, and I got paid handsomely for it. So haters can fuck off. But yeah, I love a good date. This Jupiter Saturn cross right here. I think we talked about it on Monday, but I mean,
Yeah,
it was just, I'm not an astrologist, but I know that was a major event. It wasn't just like, another one of those Mercury retrogrades right into the solstice overnight on a Sunday. I just thought, this dump kind of worried me, and I was like, damn. And then after dinner, I was like, okay, we're back at 24. I think I can short against these highs. Yeah, I woke up and, had I had the trout run this way, I would have just been like, oh shit, I'll just close right away. But I actually ended up closing somewhere in here. It was a good trade. So laugh at Jupiter Saturn all you want, guys, but it worked.
I think that's one thing to be. You can look at the charts and see, determine the probability of it going up or down in something. But I like you. I really love the time stuff because then you can get a lot of added confluence. Right? If if the chart looks strong or weak, and then you see some dates lining up with some news, or that there's going to be a massive release of supply, it just makes the decision process a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and even things like with altcoins with fundamental events like airdrops, mainnet launches, all that sell the news, buy the rumor, sell the news stuff. I love trading that because it gives you a day to basically start getting long, and then you can use your price objectives. But then you also just have a date where you're like, oh, there's a catalyst here where the price is likely to pivot. This was actually the Flare airdrop. So right to like the hour when that happened. And again, looking back, I'm like, why wasn't I trading this more aggressively? We knew that was coming on December 12th. But basically like to the hour, and then it just dumped. And even if you held that and then, taking some profits at the 618, whatever you want. But, a perfect example there. And then obviously the SEC is coming out. They're going to sue Ripple for some illegal security sales, blah, 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 which for what it's worth is probably just going to amount to a fine that they can afford to pay.
Big fine.
But really, really strong downside on Ripple here. And, going back to being like a TA analyst for the most part, we talked about this last week. People are saying, well, should I buy Ripple now? It's consolidating. It looks like it's going to continue. And I'm just thinking, well, I mean, I can't really be a buyer up here. I can't long things up there, but I see some key levels that I could get interested at, and go figure. Usually when you arrive at those key levels, nobody wants to buy. But we are right at a major level on Ripple. And I think I'm not rushing to buy it today either. I'd like to learn more about that case and how it might shake out. But I have a feeling, and typically the way it goes, looking back at levels like this, the bold sometimes get paid off. And if they come out and say like, okay, they settled and Ripple's going to pay, $500 million, whatever it is, they can afford that too. And then it's like, oh my God, Ripple's back. So, I don't know. That's my quick thoughts on it. I'm not a Ripple fanboy at all, but as a trader, I'm suddenly getting more interested in it again.
Yeah, it's a great technical level. I agree, but there's definitely, I think it's good for a bounce at the very least. But
Squeeze it,
is it a long-term hold? There's just so much uncertainty with that case. But as we know with legal cases, a lot of time once it's made public, this stuff's probably already been ongoing for quite a while, I would imagine. So we just have to see where they are in the case and keep a close eye on it. But said these guys are loaded. Apparently, the two CEOs over the past 6-7 years have pocketed over $500 million. So they can afford some good lawyers.
They've got some good money. They can stretch this thing out. I mean, remember when Tether was getting hammered by the New York, whatever it was, Attorney General, and I mean,
they still are.
They're still kicking it. They're doing fine, and they're actually probably the highest volume token in the universe. So, something to be considered. I certainly, if I had a bag of Ripple, like today's not a day where I'm like, fuck it, I'll sell. Like, I just couldn't do that at this level after holding through that. I did long, as you guys know, from this consolidation and breakout. We actually got a couple of days before it took off, which was great. In retrospect, you're like, oh, could have done more, but like, had a nice bag, made a nice trade, got a lot out. Actually early. My early targets were 42 and 49. But my final bag was set to stop out at 56 cents, which I believe happened on this dump. And then I thought, oh no, I got shaken out, but not rushing to get back in. And as it turns out, so another example of just patience. I'm just looking at different assets. Oh, look at that. Ripple's back into something I can trade again. And now it's like, let's take a look. So, student of Brian Beamish, RT, flare drop. Yeah, Matt, I am a student of Brian Beamish. Well, a graduate, I should say. I finished my 3 terms over there over the last 3 years. And go on the daily brief there sometimes. Good friends. Susan Bossman says, who wants some easy money at no risk? Okay. Great start for a conversation. Probably don't listen to Susan Bossman, guys. That offer does not exist. But she did give you her phone number, so what's not to trust?
Wow.
Somebody get her out of here, Susan Bossman. I am flattered, though, that we have somebody who feels that our channel is worth spamming with that. Guys, don't ever click on that shit or call those numbers.
Made it. Probably pull up a Solana chart. It's like very close to breaking some key levels here.
Okay, guys, let's pull up some Solana charts, and then we're going to take a look at some of these requests for coins. Falcon Swap Layer 2 mainnet launching before year's end with 0 swapping 5-minute cap. Yep. I know Falcon Swap quite well, actually, Striker Mike. So let's take a look at it. It did break out the other day on the announcement of their mainnet, I believe it was, or platform, whatever. So let's go to Solana. Solana, which chart? Let's go here. I don't actually have it. Matters not. What's the best chart for Solana?
Binance has more data.
Binance more data. Okay, perfect. So let's go daily. Let's get that nice zoomed out. Oh my God.
I know. It's
just a downtrend.
Big downtrend. Not looking good.
Yeah.
If it breaks this level, we're definitely about to go see some negative price discovery. And it could actually, this could be the big shakeout on Solana that we've been waiting for. Obviously we have, I think in about less than 2 weeks, we're going to have all that supply distributed. So I would expect.
Tell us a bit about that supply for those who didn't hear the full explanation. What does it mean? What is this January release of supply, and what do you expect?
Basically, this is an old 2017 SAF token, and all those investors, they had the same unlock date, which I think is January 7th or January 8th off my head. So basically, all of that supply is going to be unlocked, and they'll have the ability to move it to exchanges, or hold it. Who knows what they'll do? But as we've mentioned before, the Solana team and other funds have been trying to soak up supply ahead of that, trying to dampen the effects. I think it's a great strategy, but can you soak it all up? Probably not, right? So I do think we'll see a little bit of a sell-off. I'm not sure how aggressive it's going to be, but I do think it's a decent buying opportunity once that dust is settled.
Yeah, no, I love that kind of shit because you're already in a downtrend. You get that major sell-off, which is likely, it could be honest, like what major player is going to step in front of this when they know that's coming?
Exactly.
Right? Those who put floors in markets, they do their research and they know that if there's a massive supply, what's the opposite of supply shock? Supply flood coming in, even we wouldn't in front of that, and they certainly won't. And we always say you want to be long with the big boys. You want to see those footprints coming into the market, and that usually is in the form of high volume.
Mm-hmm.
And it often takes the shape of a W. And so we saw that here. And, markets will try to bottom, quote unquote, try to bottom. We're assigning a certain level of intention to a market, which sometimes sounds absurd, but you get to know it and it makes sense. But, it tried to bottom here, slightly lower low on the right, which made it a bit of a red flag. Broke up, but just kind of, there wasn't enough. Lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. We're just made a lower low. And so now it's just waiting. And we're going to wait until we get another one of these, and then and then you have your W, you've got your potential bottom, and then let's see if we can get some retests. Yeah. And so it is time for patience on Solana for sure.
Won't have to be patient much longer though.
Yeah, no, I love that. I got the date up here. I'm going to save this chart and we can revisit this and take a look. And that's not like a predictive squiggly as much as just what, generally speaking, I'm looking for. I don't care how long I have to wait to get in on something that I like. I just want it to be going in my direction when I do. So the nice thing is the silver lining to this shit, as boring as it is, as unsexy as those kinds of like, we're just going to have to wait, guys. But like, you're going to get a discount. So whatever. And not only that, you get it cheaper and you wait until there's confirmation. Maybe players have put a floor in it and they're going to push it up for you because you got their bags. So that's the good news here. Let's take a look at Falcon Swap. FSW. Quick look at share since it's already on my chart, but this support is taking a beating today, but it is in the reload zone. So I'm a bit torn. It's tough to call. I really wanted to hold this level because I still got a lot of my sub pump bag, but no promise. I think after 4 or 5 taps, this thing could be expected to go down a bit. Late to sell, early to buy, maybe waiting again for that kind of action, which we got here into the new negative rebase window we talked about on Monday, but no, I guess that was yesterday. So
yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So there's still some levels here where it's like, oh, I'm actually still a bull, but I convinced you I was a bear, so you'd sell your bag. We'll see how that goes. Still bullish on share. Let's go take a look at FSW, Falcon Swap. They did announce recently the sort of launch of their swapping protocol, actually right here. And that is a great way to put a bottom in a market that looked like it wanted to bottom anyways. As you could see, the slow decline. And my bet, let's get the RSI out. RSI is great for this. My bet is that the RSI was in divergence. So let's see if we can make that a little easier to see. Bright yellow, thick lines. Yep. So look at that, guys. So this is what I love to see in an asset when you're hunting a bottom reversal. Obviously, you want to get the W's I was just talking about, which we technically have now with this sort of high, lower, or higher high breakout. And during the whole slow bleed out where everyone was like, what's Falcon Swap? Not even looking at it. The RSI was actually making higher lows. Really strong sort of internal signal that perhaps there's time for reversal. And as often is the case, you get an FA event like the announcement of a mainnet or a product that comes and marks that bottom. So we are trending up on Falcon Swap. And with fees not being too friendly on Ethereum, I mean, they're not like crazy DeFi hype train summer highs, but the fees are still averaging like 5 to 10 to 12 and sometimes $40.
Still painful.
Very painful. And Falcon Swap has a feature where they're basically batching transactions together. So there's a slight delay. They're basically saying, okay, every 10 seconds, all of the orders that are on that asset, we're going to put them all together into one, and we're going to process them for you, and you guys are going to save on fees. That's one of their things. Privacy swapping, lower slippage, charts look decent. Yeah, so that's what Striker says. So they definitely, yeah, I agree, Striker Mike. I think Falcon Swap is promising. I think the one knock on it is that there will be other solutions that will come along and solve those things for Ethereum, like ETH 2.0 eventually. So it may be a limited long-term scope, perhaps solving a problem that has other solutions. But that's like, as an analyst, you got to think of all the potential risks. But I really like the Falcon Swap. I was an investor in their pre-sale. Did some profit taking through what I imagined was a market top, whether I like it or not, whether I think something is promising long term or not. If I spot a downtrend into a market, I will.
I'm out.
Yeah, well, I'm out. So very excited to see that they are alive and well and moving along, and going to be looking at opportunities to trade this thing to the long side. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Striker, because that's actually one that should be on my short list. And it's really nice to see. The thing I love about crypto right now is you can get these like kind of macro downtrends in alts, and then there's still stories that are working. You can still be like a coin picker in this market. I'll give you an example that just made me think of that. LBC. Always interested to see library credits. The other day just went like 500%. And you'd be like, well, how do I catch that? Well, you don't. But I know a lot of guys over at TRI, this is their favorite setup. They get the pump, they get traced back down to the lows, they start seeing divergences come in. I mean, same thing right here, right? Look at this RSI. Price is trending down. What was the RSI doing? It was trending up. You get that internal strength. So I know a few guys over there that were cheering on this day because they were buying in these lows, and they're setting sell orders for halves on doubles, and I think they banged out like a triple double. It was sick. I did not trade that one, but point is, coin pickers market. Is it alt season? No. Is there some setups coming in? Yes. Can you still make some trades? Yes. So shout out to whoever caught that one, because it was on the chart. You just got to be looking in some of the stinkier places. Yeah, Matt says I need to watch the stream with B. Pelosi. Still too much amazing content. Absolute chads. Love it. Appreciate that, brother. Interesting. Is it a dot project? No. So Falcon Swap is not a dot project. It's built on Ethereum. They're basically going to do some aggregation and find ways to basically solve a lot of the issues that Uniswap faces, like trade fees. Privacy swapping is interesting. I hadn't heard of that one yet. I'd like to.
That's going. Yeah, I think privacy trend, like talked about it before. Privacy tech in 2021 is going to be big, as the KYC regulations get rolled out early this year, globally throughout all of 2021. It's not just going to be the U.S. You got the Stable Act for stable coins.
Damn. Now, like cross-reference, this is PNT. I don't know anything about it. Linus just mentioned it, and I have a bit of a bro crush on Linus because every time he mentions a coin, it's a good setup, or at least like a reasonable one. You've mentioned a lot of great shorts, a lot of great longs, and I think you've done it again. PNT, whatever it is looking a lot better. If you just want to cross-reference it with Solana, you can see it's lower highs, lower lows, breaking key levels at a key level. On the flip side, you've got PNT. Already kind of had a pretty shitty long, dump since its highs in August when everything kind of came down. Well, what has it done recently? It's put in its low. Okay. Oh, we got a higher low. We've got a higher low. We've got a higher low. Got a higher low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's starting to trend up. What's the volume doing? Well, it's rising. Pretty decent volume. Nice big buy came in yesterday, it looks like, but naturally today, kind of getting the bug that everything else in the market has. Yeah, I don't mind PNT. I don't mind it at all. Let's take a look at the internals. And yeah, I mean, you can see the RSI started to take off a little bit here. Higher lows, almost much faster than price. So again, seeing some of that internal strength on the relative strength index. Go figure. Yeah, it looks pretty good. What do you know about it? Linus gives me a smile. CFI, por favor. Yes, I will take a look at CFI. Also fairly well. I mean, Nick can speak to CFI, but we're both invested in holding and helping with that project. So
John Billiard had a good question in chat there. where can you find accumulation for low market cap unknown coins like you found Share? There's only, like, how we spot accumulation distribution. We've talked about it before, is using on-chain suites, data analysis tools, websites, etc. Nansen is a good one for that. I think it's only like $7 a month too.
Yeah, I know Messiah's been talking a lot about Nansen and, you know, taking the plunge, trying it out.
Yeah, Nansen's a great tool. It's a must-have, really, in this day and age. In terms of like being able to know what's getting accumulated and or distributed, or you kind of just have to do your own research, really, to find the projects and then look at them. Using the on-chain stuff that we just talked about, or if you don't have access to that, you can just look at the chart. The tail is always in the volume. I've generally found over the years. But yeah, there's no scanner, as far as I know, that exists that scans for accumulation and distribution on low cap coins. But it would be an interesting idea. If somebody could code that up and backtest it and came out with good results. But generally, how we find those coins is just research, man. Getting out there, seeing what people are talking about. Working with a lot of the incubators and stuff. So that's just research, really.
Yeah. Now, further to that, and we say this a lot, it's really good to get with a team, working with a lot of people. There's just too much data and too many things going on to reasonably, see it all. And I will admit, Share was put on my radar by an old friend of mine, or a good friend of mine, I should say. I've been known him for a few years now through crypto, and he is just notorious at finding the shittiest coins that no one would ever think to buy. And I'm not calling this one the shittiest one, but I mean, look at the market cap was like sub 500K. Like, it was this little stink butt. And one ETH was like a 30% move. The liquidity was so low. And if you look at the chart, you're like, oh, well, it had its chance, big pump and dump, it's dead. But this was actually V1. And then there was a bug and all the LPs got bricked. They lost their funds. They were locked in forever. It was an accident. And the founder has now paid them back through the seigniorage and all that. So it's all good. But somewhere down here, V1 was fixed. V2 was out, but it was still sitting dormant. And it came to our attention. And this is actually the day we discovered it. We're like, okay, let's put a little ETH in. And it was just like, okay, you guys, settle down. It's low liquidity. And we started loading up. And then right here, thankfully, it's on my radar. I'm paying attention. There was a 3-to-1 dilution. Basically, if you had 100,000 shares, you now had 33,000 shares. And that happened to everybody. And the price was at 1 cent. And so once that dilution happens, you should think, well, assuming all things stay equal, this price should now be 3 cents because there's just 2/3 less tokens. So I did load. I was very fortunate to be sitting at my computer on that Saturday afternoon when the founder announced that. And I was like, wait a sec. And I'm trying to do that. I got that like math brain on. I'm like, wait a sec, this should be 3x. So I kind of aped in a little more here. I did not expect this. This was like, holy shit. So yeah, it worked out, but this is a rare foray into the shitcoin world. I don't go that deep usually, but long story short, try to build a squad, go to the chats that you like, find the guys that you're like, oh man, they're sharp, they're on a lot, they're reliable, they've got good analysis skills, invite some to a different chat, create your own group. We did that in 2017. We're all still together now and growing stronger. Right. That's my number one recommendation is be with a squad and vet your squad carefully. And then you get those eyes in the market. And one of the things I love about this stream is that we've got the viewers. We've got you guys together. Nick and I are here sharing what we see. You guys are bringing in ideas. We got PNT right now off Linus for all the shit in Alttown right now. This is actually a decent looking chart. And so given what I see in alts, I just expect, something like this where it's just maybe it's not ready to go yet, but it's certainly in a range where I'm like, holy shit, higher lows, breakout. Are we retesting? Like there's a trade here. Absolutely. And I don't know what PNT is, but I do now. So thank you, Linus. And that, kind of further to the point. Oh yeah, so Striker Mike is asking about Telegram. The trading pit is listed on our Twitter, so that's the best place to start. It's totally free. There's lots of smart individuals in there. There's also a lot of people shilling shitcoins in there. You got to be careful. You got to pick your battles. You got to, what I would recommend, and this is what I actually did in early 2017, where I first met some of these guys I'm talking about, it was in the Stratus Slack channel. Okay, Strat just got delisted from Binance, RIP, and they had an altcoin section in their Slack channel, kind of like a Discord. For those of you who don't know what the hell Slack is, because no one uses it in crypto anymore, it seems. And I met a few guys in there, and I did a lot of watching and waiting, and you quickly find out who's an idiot and who's just talking about their bags when they're up a lot and saying, "Oh, and we're going to go another 10x." It's like, nah, bro, I'm not buying your bag up here. Sorry. And then over time, you start to learn the guys who was like, holy shit, this guy was talking about this thing when no one else was, when it was dead, based on the, share. Like, this thing was total trash. But my buddy saw the potential in the protocol. He said, we got an active dev. We've got a cool idea. They've solved the issue with rebase. Let's accumulate some, because I think this thing could fly. And so you start to get to know who is spotting value and who's reliable and who's, just smart and knows their shit. And then over time, you reach out to them. You say, look, guys, whatever. And I mean, beyond that, I don't know. But I know at some point we all created our own group in Telegram, and we still went back to those main channels, but we had our own kind of information circle. And over the last 3 years, it's really strengthened. And, so get your squad, boys, ladies, gentlemen. Never too early to start networking and getting to know people, because in a year or two, if you manage risk and you stick around, you're going to be an OG in this space. And you got to ask yourself, over those 2 years, what kind of network did you build? If that's your goal, if that's something you feel you can do, don't be shy. Everyone I talk to in crypto, for the most part, is keen to expand their network and meet new people. And, so that's my rant.
It's one giant network effect.
It is. Yeah. They understand the value of getting to know people. So, and, when I started in crypto, like, I was nobody. I was just a guy on the internet, random, with the name random in my name. But I get to know people. That's actually, it's gotten me 2 jobs, 2 gigs, got me into a trade school that I love. I mean, that's the journey, right? 3.5 years in now. And I got 10 years to go till I feel like I'm an expert. So we're on the grind, baby. What do we want to look at as we get near the top of the hour? I do have to cut. We got this meeting in 15 minutes.
CFI?
Oh yeah, CFI. CFI is actually coming into some interesting levels, I noticed as I was charting it up this morning. I don't know if the ink will be on here, but let's take a look at it. It's coming into some interesting levels. Just caught a bounce at a place where it kind of needed to. So that's really hopeful. Let's look at it. You guys know I'm going to...
Staking's coming out in a couple days as well.
Oh, good to know. Staking is on its way. Let's see if I can get this fib. You guys know I'm going to draw my fib.
Okay.
Because this gives me an idea of where I want to place bids, get excited. So this is actually a really good bounce spot, and I will explain to you why. First of all, you had a breakout point back here. So if we want to really give this thing the full treatment, we got to acknowledge where it first broke out. And even before that, first broke out, comes into that level, breaks out again, comes down into that same level, breaks out again. Retest. I mean, you don't want to see too many taps of levels like that. Eventually the buyers at that level dry up and then the sellers continue. But generally speaking, we just bounced off a key level. I mean, these are the days up here where people tend to want to buy. They're like, yeah, now it's going up, I want to buy. Typically speaking, as a trader, you want to get in there when people want to sell. Say, oh, key level, you want to sell me some? Sure, I'll take it. Sure, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll buy it off you here if you want to sell. And that's how you make money. And then when it's up here where everyone's FOMOing in, and then it's like, okay, I don't mind selling you a little bit here. I'll sell you some here. So that's the name of the game.
Yep. And
so we are in this level where, I'm leaning on the buy side as far as like, I saw this breakout. I was like, well, shit, that was a really nice breakout. Retest and go. I missed it. So I'm now starting to hunt these levels. Somebody clearly feeling the same way with this nice green 4 hours. So yeah, bullish on CFI from a fundamental point of view. As Nick pointed out, staking is going live soon, which should lock up a lot of the early supply as faith in the network is sort of established by staking and getting some rewards. So yeah, Love CFI. Still really low cap as well. Let's take a look. Sub 5 million, I think. 3 million. So there's definitely some room here as far as like speculators who are going to say, well, this is worth that, and that's worth this, and this is only worth this, so therefore I can buy it even up here. And that's where you get those narratives. Like that's why I like a low cap. So, I always ask myself, if this thing rallies up here and we break above, this key high up here, fairly straight. Yeah, if we get there, who's going to buy? What's going to be the narrative? Is it $1 billion market cap and they're going to say it's overpriced? Or let's see what it would be. We can estimate if there was zero inflation until then, it'd be 100%. So it'd be like a 6 million market cap. So, I would ask myself this question: can the shill up here work? Will people buy up here thinking it's undervalued? And at 6 million market cap, where perhaps there's a lot of other DeFi projects much larger, then yes, my answer is yes. And so that's why I get attracted to these lower cap opportunities. And that's how I factor that in. Because you want to ask yourself, like, who's buying here? Okay, well, that's a $12 million market cap. Maybe not buying the high, but are they going to grab this retest at 6? Like, you get that narrative, and low cap stuff really has a strong narrative when you do those kind of speculative valuations. So love that about CFI. And yeah, I mean, from this view, you're like, holy shit, what a level. If I'm a trader, can I take a shot there? Probably. If you have over 10 altcoins, can't trade fast enough. Yes. So Striker Mike asked another great question. You're on fire today, bro. He said, how do you manage risk if you have over 10 altcoins? Can't trade fast enough. And that is such a good conversation to have for altcoin traders, because they're correlated. For the most part, they're heavily correlated, especially Binance coins. Like I said, the market makers, they're moving around the charts at the same time. If Bitcoin breaks the highs here, if Bitcoin breaks these highs, you better believe there will be a coordinated dump across every altcoin on Binance, barring maybe the odd one that's got a catalyst or something. There's going to be a matching red candle on every single one of them. And so if you're taking 1% risk on your trade because you manage risk, quote unquote, then you have to ask yourself, how many of those 1% risk trades do you have? And if one of them loses, are all of them going to lose together? And then how much are you really risking? In that example, 10%, which is a very high amount to give up on your portfolio for essentially one trade idea. So yes, Striker Mike, I would say, how do you manage your risk if you have over 10 altcoins? Because you can't trade fast enough. You are competing with machines at that point, who, like I said, they'll have programs set to auto sell, sometimes even before the breakout, because they're planning on being the breakout. So me personally, I have small exposure is the first way to go. Like I have some power trade fuel. I have 0.79% of my portfolio in that coin. If it dumps 50%, it's not going to hurt my bottom line. I have some DFD, DeFi dollar DAO. 0.85% of my portfolio is in that coin. I have DGen VC. 0.1% of my portfolio is in there, right? So I have these tiny bags. So position sizing is so important if you want to spread out. It's not as sexy. Doesn't sound good, right? Oh, we're going to pump 10x. I'm not even going to be rich. But you maintain your bottom line. You manage your risk. And over time, those are the guys who are going to be stinky, filthy, successful over time. So I hope that helps answer your question. And if you are out of position for everything I just talked about, and you're like, well, shit, I need to do that. You just got to find the right time to do it. And, that can be a trick in itself. We do have to wrap, guys. I will tell you one very quick story, which was a trader that I worked with over the last 2 years, and he was in a bad way. He was in a lot of altcoins. They were dying very quickly. He still had some decent capital in them. So if he pulled it all out, reset it to a tether coin, like a stable coin, he would have probably had a decent account and he could trade it. And he was like, I don't know what to do. I'm so underwater. And I just said, look, I can't give you financial advice, but I will tell you this. One time I was in that position and I just cut everything and I ended up in a full stable coin and I could suddenly see the world clearly. I had my capital stabilized. And over the next 2 months, the market continued to go down quite a bit. And as it turns out, I look back and I was very thankful I did it. He did that shortly after I told him that. and he was very thankful he did it. But again, I hate the idea of like financial advice because we just broke a key level here. Somebody hears me say that and then they do it, and then in a week we bounce heavily and they're like, well, you made me sell the bottom. I'm not making you sell anything. I'm just saying it's very hard to see the forest for the trees when you're in a heavy, over leveraged, underwater, high risk position. So just you've got to maneuver that yourself. I cannot advise on that, but that's my story. I've done it. It worked out. Yeah, sorry guys. You know what? I'm seeing some really good banter in the chat here. So if I missed any altcoin requests, we do have 3 minutes to get to this meeting. So we got to get back to the studio. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. We got kind of a quick fire through a few things. As is the case on these breaking of key low days, we do a lot of talking about managing risk and just trying to give some pump up ideas and longer visioned stuff. Ooh, look, I got the red shirt and the green screen. It's Christmas. Teaching how to fish, guys. Teaching how to fish is what we're here for. And when altcoins, are ready, when they're looking sexy, it's time to crank up the risk. And there will be a day. I'll be here with Nick, and we'll be spotting some of the best setups. We're going to be sharing some of our favorite ideas, and we're going to be asking you guys for some of what you guys are into, and we'll chart it together. We'll put it all together. And I'm confident that next year or whenever that day comes, I won't put a timeline on it, but months, I think, into Q2 is when if I had to throw a punt, say, here's a dart, I'm going to throw it at when I think there's going to just be another big FU altcoin rally. I would pick Q2 next year. And so in between, what's going to happen? I don't know. Is it more down? Is it sideways? Is it a nice 200% bounce and then more down? Who knows? But I'll be watching every step of the way anyways, just in case. Happy holidays, everybody. Everyone's peeling off to do their own thing. Some Christmas, some not. Whatever it is you are doing, whatever it is you're celebrating, I would just recommend to try your best to enjoy it. Try not to let the market stress you out. If it is, take a look at your risk, take a look at your exposure, and adjust until you no longer feel stressed. And then you're in a good position to play from strength, which is what I always say you should do. So until Monday, have a wonderful little break here, and we'll be back to see you then. Take care, everybody.
Happy holidays.